Hello and welcome. Today I'm here with Roger from Innovare. Innovare you will be familiar with as one of our investments. It's one we've held for a number of years, and if you recall, it is one that specialises in leasing farm equipment to small farm holders in Africa. Something that we feel from an ethical point of view is very important. It meets a real need. But I thought better than me talking about it today, I'm going to let Roger, who has been involved in Innovare right from the start, is one of the founders, to explain things to you. So welcome, Roger.
Thanks, Wayne.
So, Roger, the first question I would like to ask you is, how did Innovare come about?
Thanks, Wayne. Great question. I first began to do work in Africa in the early 90s, and it was clear that the opportunity and need for capital was huge. And then after many years working in microcredit, I began to think about how we could use the capital markets as a way to both make money for investors and really transform lives. And it was clear that agriculture was the answer. So I started in Innovare. Unfortunately, my only qualifications to work in agriculture is that I come from New Jersey, which is known as the Garden State. But we put together a good team of people who both knew the world of finance and knew the world of agriculture. We began to look at some of the fundamental issues around food and food security. And in fact, we can produce enough food to feed people, but we can't for the 9 billion people that are going to be in the world by 2050. Africa has always had the great potential to be a breadbasket, but it was a lack of equipment and lack of financing for that equipment was the problem that we really tried to solve.
Excellent, excellent. So could you then please give us an update of African agriculture?
Sure. There are about 50 million smallholder farmers in Africa. Smallholder defined as about a hectare or more, or less in fact. One of their biggest challenges is lack of equipment. The key driver here is the need for mechanization. I'll give you an example. A thresher, for example, 1 hour with a thresher is equivalent to about 10 to 12 man-hours of work. So by increasing the level of mechanization, and that's what our finance is for, you can dramatically produce and increase yields. Unlike the more developed parts of the world where these kind of interventions can improve yields 3, 5, 7%, in many of the countries in Africa, these kind of interventions and access to equipment can boost productivity by multiples. Excellent.
So then this is going to be having a serious impact on African farmers. Is this what you're seeing?
That's exactly what we're seeing. Access to equipment that they've never had before, better incomes, more livelihoods, pays for education, pays for healthcare, more nutritious foods. We've not been able to come up with a metric yet that really considers the many, many ways that our work is really impacting people.
Excellent, that's good to hear. Finally, obviously when people talk about Africa, they want to run to the hills when it comes to risk. It is a place where lots of money has been sunk before and failed. Could you please tell us a little bit about how you are mitigating the risk of your investments in Africa?
Yeah, another great question, Wayne, because you're right. The common perception is there's a lot of risk. We do it two ways. We think of risk in terms of operational risk, and we think of risk in terms of financial risk. First, on the operations. With our leasing facility, we have a very strong local partner with boots on the ground. That means two things. If a tractor, for example, isn't working, they can get access to the equipment that they need to fix it. More importantly, if somebody's not making their lease payment, they go knocking on the door, and guess what? We find a way to get the lease paid. The second way that we're mitigating risk is what we call financial. And this is done through structuring. Having spent many years on Wall Street, some of those tools have actually come in very handy. So the way that the cash waterfall works, the way that the notes are secured is 25% down payment, 50% buyback from the vendors, external guarantees from the African Guarantee Fund, and to do the math, 25 and 50 and 50. And on top of that, we actually own the asset. We own the lease until the last lease payment is made. Important to note, this is lease to own. These are not operating leases. These are financial leases. So 25, 50, 50, and 100, that's the kind of backing which is really behind the notes.
Thank you, Roger, for that answer on risk. I know that really matters to a lot of people. So finally, one further question. How are you finding other investors reacting to this?
Thanks, Wayne. Another great question. Finally starting to see a lot of interest. And that's why I appreciate the chance to be here today. When I began working in emerging markets, people thought I was crazy that you could begin to make money overseas. And it was the same thing in microfinance. Eventually became mainstream, and that's when we started working, because you and your colleagues really understood the difference it could make in terms of people's lives. And as I've shifted into agriculture, once again, it's great to get the band back together again, because you, more than a lot of other people, what I found, really understand that you can make money and really make a difference at the same time. So finally, the rest of the world is really catching up to recognizing these things as well.
Excellent. Well, it's great to see that finally ethical investing and socially responsible and impact investing is being taken seriously by everyone. It is good to see we're coming in from the cold. Thank you.